Welcome back to AI Unraveled, your daily strategic briefing on the business impact of artificial intelligence. It is Thursday, February 19th, 2026. This episode is brought to you by AIRIA. In an era of AI sprawl and broken slop generators, AIRIA helps you regain control of your AI landscape with a unified orchestration and security platform. Today, Google is moving the goalposts again. They just released Gemini 3.1 Pro, and the headline isn't just a version number, it's a doubling of reasoning performance. But while Google is thinking harder, Microsoft is thinking longer, 10,000 years longer. We're looking at Project Silica, which stores terabytes of data in glass that can outlast human civilization. We're also tracking a massive shift in the VC world. World Labs just raised $1 billion because the smartest minds in the room are starting to look past text and towards spatial intelligence. And in a move that is making European lawyers very nervous, the Trump administration is building a government-backed VPN to bypass global content rules. This podcast is created and produced by Etienne Noumen, senior software engineer and passionate soccer dad from Canada. Now let's unravel the news.
Before we dive into today's deep dive, a quick note for the brands listening. If you are trying to reach the architects of the AI revolution, not just the tourists, but the technical leaders actually building the stack, we are opening up limited partnership spots for Q1. See how we can simulate your product for the technical buyer at jamgamine.com/partners.
Welcome back to AI Unraveled. This is your daily briefing where we try to strip away the hype, ignore the noise, and just get straight to the signal. We're here for the industry insiders and the incurably curious. It is Thursday, February 19th, 2026.
And honestly, I need a coffee, like a very large one, or maybe just a neural implant that simulates caffeine directly into my brainstem, because the velocity of news today it's absolutely breathless.
It really is. I was looking at the stack of sources we have to cover for this deep dive today, and it just feels different.
Yeah.
Usually we're talking about, faster chips or maybe a slightly wittier chatbot, but today feels like we're looking at a fundamental shift in the architecture of reality itself.
That sounds dramatic, I know, but you really aren't wrong. We are seeing a fracturing, a bifurcation. On one side, you have the definition of intelligence getting this massive upgrade in reasoning, and on the other side, you have the definition of privacy basically dissolving into thin air.
Right. Because we are not just talking about software today. We are talking about how we store human history for the next 10,000 years. We are talking about how nations conduct diplomacy through VPNs.
Which is wild.
Scariest of all for anyone with a normal 9-to-5 job. We're talking about how your HR department might be tracking your every single prompt to decide if you get a promotion.
Yeah, it's a day where the bit rot era might finally end, but the privacy era might be ending right along with it.
Exactly. So here is the menu for today's deep dive. We are starting right at the top of the stack with Google releasing Gemini 3.1 Pro today. And yes, we are going to unpack why that little decimal point, that 0.1, is actually a massive deal for how AI reasons.
Right, and then we have to look east. The eastern front of AI development is moving so fast, it's blurring the lines. I mean, we have 7 new models from China in just 3 weeks.
7.
Yeah, and they are effectively destroying the pricing structure of the entire industry.
We will get to that price war in a bit. We're also talking about the spatial intelligence boom, why investors are pouring $1 billion into World Labs to teach AI physics and not just language. And on the geopolitical front, we've got the Trump administration's Freedom.gov initiative.
That's the one that essentially turns the State Department into a VPN provider.
Exactly.
Which is a sentence I never thought I would say out loud.
I know, it's wild. And finally, a story that might make you sweat a little at your desk. Accenture tying promotions to AI tool usage. We have to ask, is it innovation or is it just a dystopian metrics game?
It's a lot to unpack, but let's start with the big one, Google. Today, they dropped Gemini 3.1 Pro.
Right, and immediately, really had to look at the name. Gemini 3.1 is the first time they've done a decimal increment right.
Yeah.
Usually in this industry, we jump from Gemini 2 to 3, or we get some marketing suffix like turbo or flash or ultra. What does a 0.1 signal to you?
Well, it signals maturity. In the software engineering world, a point release, like going from version 3.0 to 3.1, usually means optimization. It means refinement. It's a targeted upgrade rather than a, burn it down and start over approach.
Right, they aren't starting from scratch.
Exactly. It tells me that Google has found a stable architecture with Gemini 3. They aren't panicking. They aren't trying to reinvent the wheel just to make a splash. Now, they are iterating on the quality of thought.
Quality of thought. I like that phrase. Because usually we just talk about speed. We talk about tokens per second and how fast the text scrolls across the screen.
Because speed is easy to measure, but thinking is hard. And that is what this update is really about. They aren't just throwing more parameters at a wall to see what sticks. They are refining the core intelligence.
And the stats seem to completely back that up. The headline number that every one of the sources is circulating today is this score on ARC-AGI-2, Gemini 3.1 Pro, hits 77.1%.
Which is huge. But we definitely need to pause here, because I bet 90% of people hear ARC-AGI-2 and their eyes just glaze over. Oh, absolutely. We just drown in acronyms in this field. MMLU, GSM8K, math. Why do we even care about ARC?
Please, break it down for us. Why is this specific acronym the one that matters today?
Okay, so most benchmarks we see are effectively just testing memorization. If I ask an AI what is the capital of France, or write a Python script to sort a list, it has seen those exact examples a billion times in its training data.
Right.
It's just reciting a recipe it already knows by heart.
It's like a student who literally memorized the textbook before the final exam. They don't necessarily understand the concepts, they just know the answers to the specific questions.
That is exactly it. But RRC-AGI-2 is different. It stands for the Abstraction and Reasoning Corpus. It was designed specifically to be unmemorizable.
Unmemorizable.
Yeah. It gives the AI a visual puzzle. Think grids of colored squares, patterns that shift and rotate, things that it's strictly never seen before.
So it's essentially an IQ test for the machine.
Ideally, yes. It forces the model to look at a totally new problem, figure out the underlying rule on the fly. Like, oh, the blue squares always move to the left of the red squares, and then it has to apply that brand new rule to a blank grid. It's measuring novel reasoning.
So it's the difference between reciting a recipe you memorize and walking into a kitchen with totally random ingredients.
Yeah.
You know, you got a turnip, a fish, and some chocolate, and you have to figure out how to cook a meal that doesn't kill someone.
That is a fantastic analogy.
Yes.
And Google claims the 77.1% score is effectively double the reasoning performance of the previous Gemini 3 Pro.
Double.
Yes, that is not a marginal gain. That is a massive leap in System 2 thinking.
You mentioned System 2 thinking.
Mhm.
We hear that a lot in the research papers, but let's really ground it for a second. What is Gemini actually doing differently when it uses System 2?
Think of it like a game of chess. Most large language models, like GPT-4 or the older Gemini models, they are playing speed chess. They look at the board, their intuition screams, move the knight, and they move it immediately.
Right, that's System 1.
Exactly. It's fast, it's intuitive, and it's statistically likely to be a decent move. But it completely fails when the position is complex or requires planning, say, 10 moves ahead.
Because it's just reacting, not planning.
Correct. Now, Gemini 3.1 Pro, with these new upgrades, is playing a tournament game with a clock. It looks at the board, considers moving the knight, and then it pauses. It literally simulates 3 moves ahead.
It's testing out the futures.
Yes. It realizes, wait, if I move the knight, I am going to lose my bishop in 2 turns. So it backtracks, it simulates a totally different path, and then it makes a move.
It's basically having an internal monologue.
Precisely. That process, that internal tree search of possibilities before generating a single token of output, is what we call System 2. And getting that into a standard Pro model, not just some massive, super expensive Ultra model, that is why that decimal point matters so much. It is democratizing the chess grandmaster.
And they are attributing this directly to the core intelligence upgrades that originally debuted in Gemini 3 DeepThink.
Right. It seems so, yes. They've managed to distill some of that really heavy, compute-intensive DeepThink capability down into the standard Pro model. It's designed for tasks where a simple, fast answer just fails.
Give me a tangible use case. Where does this actually show up and matter for a user sitting at their desk?
Coding is the most obvious one. If you're coding a complex system architecture, almost right is synonymous with completely broken.
Oh, yeah. One wrong line, the whole thing crashes.
Exactly. Or think about legal discovery, where nuance is literally everything. Speed of token generation does not matter at all if the logic is fundamentally flawed. Gemini 3.1 Pro is optimizing for the quality of the thought path.
And this is rolling out right now.
Yes, in preview mode. It's hitting the Gemini app Notebook LM, which is obviously a massive favorite for researchers, and the developer tools like Google AI Studio and Vertex AI.
So Google is aggressively pushing the ceiling on reasoning. But while they are pushing that ceiling higher, there is an absolute flood rising from the floor. we really need to talk about the Eastern Front, so to speak.
The sheer volume of releases coming out of China right now is staggering.
I was looking at the data dump this morning. In the last 3 weeks alone, Chinese labs have shipped 7 major models.
7. And let's be very clear about this. These aren't toy models. These aren't just cheap knockoffs anymore. These are frontier-class contenders.
I want to pause on that list because it is overwhelming. You have Moonshot AI, ZAI, Minimax, ByteDance, Kuaishu, Alibaba. If you're just listening to this, your eyes are probably glazing over. It sounds like reading a phone book.
It does, but we need to pay attention to the specialization happening here. They aren't just building generic chatbots that write poems.
Okay, let's break a few of them down. Start with Moonshot AI and their release, Kimi K2.5.
This one is fascinating because it focuses entirely on agentic behavior. Kimi K2.5 is capable of coordinating 100 sub-agents in parallel.
Explain that. Sub-agents. What does that actually look like?
Think about planning a complex vacation. A standard chatbot just writes out an itinerary for you. Kimi K2.5 acts like a full-blown project manager. It spins up one agent to check flight prices. It spins up another agent to check hotel availability across different sites. Another one looks up the local weather forecast. And another one goes and reserves restaurant tables. And it coordinates all of them simultaneously.
So it's not just a chatbot answering a prompt.
No, it's a manager delegating tasks to 100 little digital interns.
That is a massive shift in real-world utility. Then you have Z.AI releasing GLM-5.
Running entirely on Huawei chips, notably, which is a technical marvel in itself when you consider the U.S. chip bans. They're claiming the absolute lowest hallucination rate on the artificial analysis leaderboard.
And Minimax released M2.5. They're claiming an 80.2% score on SW Bench.
Yeah.
That is the software engineering benchmark, right?
Yes. Effectively, Minimax is claiming their model is a better coder than most entry-level human developers.
Then you have the real big gun stepping in. ByteDance, the parent company of TikTok. They are pushing what they call the agent era with Seedance 2.0 and Seed 2.0.
And those are powering Dubao, which currently has 155 million weekly active users.
That scale is just hard to comprehend.
Just the scale of deployment there is massive. They have more training data from actual real-world consumer usage than almost anyone else on the planet right now.
And then there's Kuaishu with Kling 3.0 doing native 4K 60 frames per second video. And finally, Alibaba released Qwen 3.5.
Using a mixture of experts' architecture, and they are claiming to beat GPT 5.2 on 80% of standard benchmarks. Now look, we always have to take vendor-reported benchmarks with a pretty huge grain of salt. Everyone cherry picks their wins, everyone teaches to the test.
Yeah, that's the nature of PR.
But even if you discount these claims by 10 or 15%, even if they are slightly exaggerating, the gap is effectively closed. The old idea that Western models are superior and Chinese models are lagging behind is just dead. That narrative is over.
But here's the real kicker. It is not just the performance that's shifting, it's the price.
The economics of this are absolutely brutal right now.
I looked at the API pricing sheets this morning across the board. All of these Chinese models are priced under $1 per million input tokens.
$1. Let's put that in perspective for a second.
Please do.
The Great Gatsby is about 47,000 words. You could feed the entire text of The Great Gatsby into these Chinese models 20 times for $1.
That is absurd. The compute alone.
Now, compare that to the Western stack. Claude Opus is sitting around $5. GPT 5.2 is around $1.75. We are talking about a 5x to 10x price differential for models that are arguably in the exact same weight class.
So the question the industry has to ask isn't, is Qwen better than GPT-5?
No. The real question is GPT-5 10 times better than Qwen? Because for 90% of business use cases, summarizing emails, routing customer support tickets, doing basic coding boilerplates, the answer is objectively no. The good enough threshold has been fully crossed, and now the floor is just falling out of the price.
That raises a massive question for businesses. Can Western labs justify that premium? I mean, is the vibe of GPT 5.2 worth 5 times the cost of Qwen 3.5?
It depends entirely on what you are actually buying. Are you buying raw intelligence, or are you buying safety, reliability, and data privacy assurance? The Western labs are really banking on the idea that enterprises will pay a premium for trust, for being in an ecosystem that isn't subject to, say, unexpected regulatory shifts from Beijing.
Right.
But for a developer building a consumer app where margins are incredibly thin, that $1 price point is incredibly tempting.
The speed of these releases is exhausting. I mean, we have Google 3.1 doubling performance on one hand, pushing the high end of reasoning. And then you have 7 different Chinese labs undercutting everyone on price, flooding the market with cheap, high-quality tokens.
For an enterprise CTO, this is a management nightmare. Think about it. Do you pay for the Google reasoning? Do you save money with Minimax? How do you even manage the security risks of swapping between them? You end up with this fragmented stack where corporate data is flying everywhere, some to California, some to servers running on Huawei chips.
This is exactly why we use AIRIA.
Yes, absolutely.
If you haven't heard of them, it's spelled AIRIA. AIRIA. They are essentially the control plane for the enterprise.
And that concept of a control plane is vital right now, because you do not want to be locked into one single model, but you also cannot have your data leaking out to 50 different unvetted APIs.
AIRIA gives you unified security and real-time cost control. It allows you to orchestrate all these different models in one place, securing the data and controlling the spend.
Which is key for exactly what we just discussed.
Right.
It's completely model agnostic. So you can set up a workflow where complex legal reasoning goes to Google Gemini 3.1, where you gladly pay the premium for that System 2 thinking. But high-volume, repetitive summarization tasks get routed to a lower-cost model like Minimax or Qwen.
You optimize for performance and cost without having to rewrite your entire application code every time a new model drops.
Plus, they have this amazing feature for shadow AI discovery. It helps you see what tools your employees are actually using. Because let's be honest, they are probably using tools you don't even know about. And it helps you govern them.
It turns the chaos into an actual strategy. Instead of banning these models, you manage them.
Exactly.
So secure your stack. Check out the link in the show notes for AIRIA. It is a game changer.
Highly recommended.
Okay, let's pivot. We've been talking a lot about text and reasoning, but there is a billion-dollar bet being placed right now on something else entirely: spatial intelligence.
This is the World Labs news, and this is really where we leave the realm of chatbots and firmly enter the realm of robots.
World Labs was founded by the absolute legend Fei-Fei. They just announced a $1 billion funding round,
which puts their valuation rumored to be somewhere around $5 billion. And just look at the investor list: AMD, Autodesk, Fidelity, NVIDIA, and see this is deep pocket institutional money.
For those who might not know, Fei-Fei is basically the godmother of computer vision. She created ImageNet, which effectively kickstarted the entire deep learning boom back in the day, so it makes total sense she's leading this charge. But what is the actual mission here? Why do we need spatial intelligence if we already have these amazing text models like GPT-5?
Because LLMs are disembodied. They are basically brains in a jar. They understand language perfectly. They know the word coffee. They can write a beautiful sonnet about coffee, and they can easily tell you the chemical composition of caffeine.
Right.
But if you asked an LLM to walk into a messy physical kitchen, find a mug, and pour coffee without spilling it, it has absolutely no clue.
Because it doesn't understand a mug as a physical 3D object.
Right.
It just understands mug as a statistical cluster of text tokens.
Exactly. It doesn't understand physics. It doesn't understand three-dimensional space, gravity, or occlusion.
Occlusion.
The idea that if I put the mug behind the coffee pot, the mug still exists. An LLM doesn't inherently know that. World Labs is building what they call world models.
Unpack that. World models.
They are trying to create AI that understands the three-dimensional physical world the exact way we do. When you walk into a room, you don't just see a flat 2D image. You perceive depth automatically. You predict that if you bump the table, the vase on top of it might wobble and fall. You have a physics engine running in your head at all times.
And World Labs is building that physics engine for AI.
Yes.
This is the missing link for real-world robotics, isn't it?
It absolutely is. If you want a robot butler that actually works in your house, you don't just need a chatbot stuffed into a metal body. You need a brain that can perceive depth and safely navigate a constantly changing, messy environment. But the use cases go way beyond robotics.
Right, because Runway also just announced a massive round, a $315 million Series E, which values them at $5.3 billion.
Yeah.
And their CTO, Anastasis Germanitis, had this great quote. He said, "Simulating reality is simulating a dynamic world."
It is the pivot from just chatting to perceiving and acting. We are seeing this with Jan LeCun's startup too, AMI Labs. The entire industry has essentially realized that we have largely solved the syntax of language. Now we need to solve the syntax of reality itself.
This sounds absolutely huge for things like game design and 3D creation.
Oh, massive. Imagine a video game where the environment isn't pre-scripted by developers. The AI generates the physics, the terrain, the interactions in real time based on what you do, but it's also huge for scientific discovery. If you can simulate a physical world accurately, you can test drugs, you can test new materials, you can run complex experiments in the simulation that would be physically impossible or too dangerous in the lab.
So we are simulating the physical world, but we are also getting terrifyingly good at simulating the human face.
And this transition brings us perfectly to Tavis.
Tavis just introduced Phoenix 4. And I have to say, looking at the source materials and the demo videos, it's, well, intense is one word for it. Indistinguishable might be a better word.
It is unsettlingly good.
They are claiming real-time human rendering at 40 frames per second. But the key differentiation here is how they are actually doing it. Because this isn't just a clever deepfake filter slapped over a video, is it?
No, not at all. Older avatars were often just looping videos with some lip-syncing algorithms applied, or they felt very stiff and robotic. You could always tell something was just a little off. Phoenix 4 generates every single pixel from scratch, every single frame. It is not playing a pre-recorded video. It is actively drawing a person in real time based on the conversational context.
And it creates full facial expressions, emotional shifts, and this is the big one I noticed, active listening.
That is the real breakthrough here. Think about how we actually talk to each other. When I'm talking to you right now, your face isn't just frozen in a blank stare.
Right, I'm reacting.
You're nodding. You're furrowing your brow when I say something confusing. You're reacting.
Hopefully I'm looking interested most of the time.
Mostly, yes. But that back-channeling, that constant visual feedback, is what makes a conversation actually feel human. Phoenix 4 does that. It's not just about how the avatar speaks, it's about how it waits its turn.
Wow.
If you say something sad to it, the avatar's face shifts to concern while you are still talking. If you tell a joke, it smirks before it even laughs. It completely eliminates that awkward latency of emotion that usually screams, "I am a robot."
They are pitching this for healthcare, education, and sales, which honestly makes total sense. You want a sympathetic, warm face when you're talking to a medical AI about a stressful diagnosis.
Sure, the positive use cases are definitely there, but we have to look at the dark side of this tech. This effectively kills the uncanny valley. We used to rely on that weird, hollow, slightly creepy feeling to tell our brains that something was fake. If Phoenix 4 works as advertised in the wild, that instinctual gut check is just gone.
We are entering the era of high-fidelity deception.
Imagine a phishing scam. But it's not a poorly worded text message, it's a live video call. The person on the screen looks exactly like your CEO. They sound exactly like him. But more importantly, when you hesitate to follow their instructions, they react to your hesitation perfectly.
They look annoyed.
They look confused or impatient or disappointed. They emotionally manipulate you in real time to convince you to wire the money.
The death of the uncanny valley really means the birth of a massive trust crisis. If I can't trust my own eyes on a live video call, what can I actually trust?
You can trust cryptographic signatures, maybe, but your eyes are now a major vulnerability.
Speaking of trust and longevity, let's talk about something that lasts a little longer than a quick phishing scam. Let's talk about 10,000 years.
Microsoft's Project Silica.
This story sounds like pure science fiction. They're storing data inside borosilicate glass.
It really does sound like something straight out of Superman, like the memory crystals in the Fortress of Solitude.
How does this actually work in practice? Because when I read glass storage, I'm imagining someone carving into a window pane with a really sharp needle. But I assume it's a bit more complex than that.
Just a bit, yeah. They use femtosecond lasers.
Femtosecond. Okay, what is that exactly?
It's a quadrillionth of a second.
A quadrillionth.
Yeah. To give you a real sense of scale for that, a femtosecond is to 1 second is to about 31 million years.
Okay, my brain just completely broke trying to picture that. Why do we need a laser that pulses that incredibly fast?
Because you aren't writing on the surface of the glass. You are writing inside it. If you used a normal laser, the residual heat would just crack the glass or melt it immediately. A femtosecond laser pulses so incredibly fast that it modifies the internal structure of the glass, creating these tiny little things called phase voxels before the heat can even transfer to the surrounding area.
Wow.
It's basically like teleporting a microscopic tattoo deep into your liver without ever breaking your skin.
That is a very graphic image, but very helpful. And because it is glass, it's incredibly resilient.
Unbelievably resilient. It does not suffer from bit rot at all.
Bit rot is that thing where hard drives magnetize over time or solid-state drives just naturally lose their electrical charge, right?
Yes. Or they get ruined by moisture or heat or electromagnetic pulses. Most of our current storage media is surprisingly fragile. If you leave a standard hard drive on a shelf in a closet for 50 years, good luck ever reading data off it again.
Right.
But this glass, you can boil it in water, you can bake it in an oven, you can scratch the surface, you can leave it out in the sun, and the data inside remains intact, theoretically, for 10,000 years.
Okay, stop right there. I have to push back on this claim. 10,000 years. We can hardly read floppy disks from 1995 because nobody has the drives anymore. Who on earth is going to have a borosilicate glass reader in the year 12,026? Isn't this just marketing hype for, hey, look, we made a really durable rock?
That is a completely valid cynicism. The reader problem is very real in archival science. If civilization collapses, nobody is going to be building a highly calibrated femtosecond laser reader from scratch. But here's the fundamental difference. A floppy disk degrades magnetically. The actual information is physically lost to entropy. With Project Silica, the data is physically etched into the structural geometry of the glass. As long as you have light, like lasers and a microscope and a basic understanding of optics, you can theoretically decode it.
So the data is still there, you just need to figure out how to look at it.
Right. It's much more like a hieroglyph than a hard drive. We can still read the Rosetta Stone today because it's carved into stone. Microsoft is basically betting that glass is the new stone for the digital age.
So we are literally building digital pyramids.
In a way, yes. And it's incredibly dense. A single, very small glass chip holds 4.8 terabytes of data.
Who is this actually for? I assume I'm not buying a glass writer for my home PC setup anytime soon.
No, definitely not. This is for cold storage. The target audience is places like the National Archives, major museums, or massive cloud providers who need to archive legal or financial data that absolutely must be kept forever, but is very rarely accessed. It's total immunity from decay.
There's something incredibly romantic about that. In an age where everything feels so digital and ephemeral, Snapchat's disappearing in seconds, servers wiping data constantly, Microsoft is saying, no, we are going to etch human history into glass.
It connects us right back to the ancient world. Clay tablets, hieroglyphs. We are circling back to physical inscription as the only reliable way to truly beat time.
From the very, very long term to the immediate near term, let's look at consumer hardware. Apple.
The rumor mill. It is always churning.
Bloomberg is reporting that Apple is preparing 3 new AI-centric devices for late 2026 or 2027. And this is significant because everyone has been asking for months, where is Apple's hardware answer to the AI boom?
Right. The iPhone is a great device, obviously, but is it the native vessel for interacting with AI? Probably not.
So, device 1, smart glasses.
Yeah.
But not like the Vision Pro, no display whatsoever.
This is a really interesting pivot. They are reportedly focusing purely on industrial design, outward-facing cameras, and AI audio. It sounds like they are trying to do what Meta successfully did with the Ray-Ban smart glasses, but with that premium Apple polish.
So no holograms popping up in your field of vision?
No. The idea is that the AI sees exactly what you see through the cameras, and then it just whispers context or answers directly into your ear.
It's much less intrusive than wearing a screen on your face.
It is, and crucially, it's also much lighter and far more battery efficient.
Then we have device 2, AI AirPods. The rumor says they are putting cameras embedded directly in the earbuds.
That one seems physically challenging to me. Putting a camera in a tiny earbud, the angle just seems wrong. What is it looking at? The side of your head, unless it's angled sharply down at your hands or the desk in front of you.
But the utility goal is clear. They want you to be able to look at this style multimodal queries without having to wear glasses at all.
And then device 3, the AI pendant. A clip-on or necklace device.
This one makes me highly skeptical.
Really? We saw the Humane pin completely crash and burn. We saw the Rabbit R1 struggle massively. The form factor of a wearable pin just has a really bad track record right now. It constantly feels like a solution in search of a problem. Why do I need to click a pin to my shirt if I already have a $1,000 supercomputer in my pocket?
It really does feel redundant. And the skepticism around Apple generally in the AI space is pretty high right now. They feel very late to the party.
They are late. And they are battling 2 major demons right now: trust and execution. Siri has a legacy of, well, let's be polite and just call it extreme inconsistency.
That's a nice way to put it.
And the initial rollout of Apple Intelligence was, frankly, a bit overpromised and underdelivered. To sell a piece of dedicated AI hardware, especially something like a pendant that has no screen to fall back on, consumers need to trust that the brain inside it is actually smart.
Right. The voice interface has to be flawless.
Exactly. If Siri mishears you on your phone, you just sigh and fix it with your thumb on the screen. If Siri mishears you on a screenless pen, you just look like an idiot talking to your shirt in public.
Meanwhile, as Apple struggles with hardware concepts, Meta is apparently sneaking back into the risk game.
The Facebook Watch, it is officially back from the dead.
Canceled back in 2021 and now revived for a 2026 release.
And the strategy here is just classic Meta. Undercut the competition on price and monetize the back-end data. They clearly want to beat the Apple Watch on raw cost to consumers and use the device as another constant sensor for their health, fitness, and behavioral tracking advertising machine.
It's going to be a fascinating battle of the ecosystems. The glass versus the watch versus the pendant.
I'm personally still betting on the phone for a while longer, but the alternative form factors are finally getting genuinely interesting.
Okay, let's get geopolitical for a minute. And this story, this is a genuinely weird one. Freedom.gov.
This is the Trump administration's new initiative, and this is where the theme of the fragmentation of reality really hits home today.
The news is that the administration is building a web portal called Freedom.gov. The stated goal is to help internet users in Europe and other strictly regulated regions bypass their local content restrictions.
Specifically targeting things like the EU Digital Services Act.
Right. Which heavily regulates misinformation, hate speech, and algorithmic amplification on social platforms. And to bypass this, they are planning to integrate VPN functionality directly into the U.S. government portal.
So let's be very clear about what this means physically for a user. If you are sitting in Paris and you log into freedom.gov, your internet traffic is routed securely through U.S.-based servers, so it appears to the network that you originate in the United States.
Effectively, the U.S. State Department is becoming a global VPN provider.
That is wild. It is completely unprecedented, and according to the reports, it's causing massive friction internally. State Department lawyers are frantically trying to delay it because of the obvious diplomatic nightmare it creates.
Because you have the U.S. government explicitly encouraging citizens of allied nations to actively break their own local digital laws.
It's weaponized internet freedom. Or, depending entirely on your political view, it's a massive violation of European digital sovereignty.
It creates a literally bifurcated internet.
Yes. You have the regulated internet of Europe, where hate speech is actively filtered and algorithms are strictly audited by law. And then you have the American internet, which is now being actively exported globally via government-sanctioned VPN tunnels. It turns the base internet protocols themselves into a diplomatic battleground.
And what happens when a European citizen uses this U.S. government VPN to commit a serious cybercrime? Or to spread content that is strictly illegal in Germany, but protected by the First Amendment in Texas.
That is exactly the nightmare scenario the lawyers are terrified of. Does the U.S. government shield them from extradition? Do they hand over the server logs? It's a legal mess. But it clearly shows that the idea of the internet as a single, unified global commons is dead. It is now a highly guarded patchwork of territories, and Freedom.gov is basically a state-sponsored attempt to punch a tunnel straight through the walls.
From international relations to interpersonal relations, or specifically corporate HR relations. This story out of Accenture is causing a lot of chatter across the industry today.
Yeah, this one hits very close to home for anyone working in the corporate world right now.
Accenture is reportedly tying employee promotions directly to the regular use of their internal AI tools.
They're explicitly tracking the usage, weekly logins, total prompt volume.
And they are making that raw data a highly visible factor in the upcoming summer promotion and compensation decisions.
The report highlights a really stark generational divide here. The junior staff are adopting it rapidly, mostly because they want the promotions. But the senior staff are extremely reluctant. And there are some pretty brutal quotes from employees calling the internal tools, quote, broken slop generators.
Slop generator is quickly becoming my favorite corporate insult of 2026.
It's very evocative. But let's look at the actual history here. This is Taylorism all over again.
Taylorism, remind us what that is.
Frederick Winslow Taylor. He was the father of scientific management back in the early 1900s. He famously stood over factory workers with a literal stopwatch, measuring every single physical movement they made to optimize efficiency.
Oh, really?
Accenture is doing the exact same thing today, but instead of a physical stopwatch, it's a digital keystroke logger. Instead of measuring how fast you shovel coal into a furnace, they are measuring exactly how many prompts you send to a corporate chatbot per week.
But isn't there a massive, obvious risk here? This sounds like a textbook case of Goodhart's law in action.
When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. Exactly.
If you tell me I absolutely need to use AI to get my promotion, I'm going to log in every single morning, ask the AI to summarize a blank document, generate 5 images of cats in business suits, and close the tab. I'm going to generate usage stats, not actual business value.
Exactly. You risk creating a toxic culture of pure performative compliance. Employees will use the tools to generate endless slop just to tick a mandatory box on their performance review. And the irony is, Accenture is clearly doing this to drive efficiency and innovation, but they might just be driving a massive wave of useless digital bureaucracy.
There is some nuance, though. The reports say staff in 12 different European countries are exempt from this tracking policy due to strict local labor laws.
Which again highlights that massive global divide we just talked about. In Europe, you have a legal right to privacy from the algorithm. In the US, the algorithm directly decides if you can afford to pay your mortgage this year.
It raises a huge existential question for the workplace. Is this the definitive future of HR? Measuring employee output via raw tool usage rather than the actual quality of their work.
I strongly fear it is, because it's so much easier for a manager to measure how many prompts you sent than it is to deeply measure how good your actual strategy was. We are firmly entering the era of the quantified employee, and AI is the new yardstick they are beating us with.
Let's hit the quick hit segment, rapid fire through the rest of the stack. What else happened today?
First up, Google Music. AIRIA 3 is officially now in Gemini.
This is a big deal for creators. You can generate full 30-second music tracks, complete with vocals and lyrics, right inside the standard chat interface.
And crucially, it's permanently watermarked with Synthete. The key takeaway here is distribution scale. Tools like Suno and Udio are fantastic, but they're still somewhat niche. Putting AIRIA inside Gemini puts high-quality music generation directly in front of millions of mainstream people who have never used a dedicated creative tool before. It completely democratizes the commercial jingle.
Next up, OpenAI is officially going Hollywood.
They just hired Charles Porch, the ex-Instagram celebrity chief.
This is pure damage control. Right?
100%. After the massive Scarlett Johansson voice debacle last year and the general existential fear in Hollywood about generative AI replacing actors and writers, OpenAI desperately needs a diplomat. Porch is the guy who famously convinced the Pope to get on Instagram.
Wow.
Yeah. If anyone on Earth can bridge the trust gap between Silicon Valley engineers and Beverly Hills talent agencies, it's probably him.
Did you happen to see the trailer that dropped for the AI doc?
The Apocalyptimist one? Yes. Featuring Sam Altman and Dario Amodei looking very serious.
But going totally viral today.
It really feels like the AI industry is frantically trying to shape its own historical narrative before the critical documentaries about them get made by outsiders. It's highly produced PR disguised as indie cinema.
What's going on with Perplexity in their ad platform?
They're reportedly pulling ads entirely from their interface. They want to preserve user trust. They realize that if you are pitching yourself as an objective answer engine, you really can't have sponsored answers in the feed.
It creates a massive conflict of interest.
Exactly. If I ask it, what is the best running shoe, and Nike secretly paid for the top answer, the entire tool becomes completely useless to me.
And finally, the CEO of DeepMind dropped a new timeline prediction.
He says AGI, artificial general intelligence, is achievable in the next 5 to 8 years.
The timeline just keeps shrinking. Or, I guess, staying exactly the same, depending on who you ask on what day.
5 to 8 years is the magic number. It's close enough to be incredibly scary and urgent, but it's just far enough away to keep raising massive venture capital rounds without having to immediately deliver the product. It's the perfect VC timeline.
So, let's zoom out and look at the big picture. What does all of this actually mean for the listener today?
I see 3 very clear, overarching themes from today's news. First, the total bifurcation of intelligence. You have the high-end, extremely expensive reasoning models from Google, the chess grandmasters taking their time. And on the other end, you have the incredibly cheap, ubiquitous agent swarms pouring out of China. The market is aggressively splitting into thinkers and doers.
Second theme.
The physical world is definitively the next frontier. We are entirely done with just chatting on screens. Between World Labs securing $1 billion for spatial physics and Project Silica etching data into glass, we are moving rapidly into physical reality. We are finally giving AI a physical body and a permanent physical memory.
And the third.
The modern workplace is rapidly becoming a data-driven panopticon. Between Accenture heavily tracking your daily prompts for promotions and Tavis avatars potentially eliminating the authentic human element of video calls, the corporate environment is becoming synthesized. It's being scrutinized and gamified in a way we simply haven't seen since the Industrial Revolution.
It leads to a really provocative thought to end this show on today. If we have AI avatars that can fake genuine empathy perfectly, like Phoenix 4, and we simultaneously have human employees who are practically forced to use AI to generate work just to get promoted, like at Accenture, are we actively building a workforce that is entirely optimized for metrics rather than meaning?
It's a terrifying question. Are we just creating an endless corporate loop of slop generation, strictly managed by machines that are just pretending to care? It's a very valid fear. If the AI avatar feigns listening on the call and the human employee feigns working on the report, who is actually doing anything real anymore?
That is definitely something heavy to think about on your commute today. Or, while you generate your daily quota of AI slop for your HR department.
Please don't actually do that, but do check out AIRIA to manage the chaos.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Keep your stack secure and try to keep your reasoning human.
See y'all tomorrow.
This has been AI Unraveled. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you next time for another deep dive.
That wraps up today's briefing. The signal for today is durability. Durability in data with Project Silica. Durability in reasoning with Gemini 3.1, and the durable lead that Chinese labs are building in the pricing war. This episode was made possible by AIRIA. Don't let your AI strategy become a shadow problem. Secure your stack and orchestrate your agents with AIRIA. Check the link in the show notes. This podcast is created and produced by Etienne Noumen, senior software engineer and passionate soccer dad from Canada. Please subscribe and share. Until tomorrow, keep unraveling the future.
And before you go, if your company is building the tools that power the workflows we talked about today, I'd love to showcase them to this audience. We don't just run ads, we build technical simulations that prove your value. Let's build something together. Visit jamgamind.com/partners to get started. Until next time, keep building.